unless it's tamed. Hope you've enjoyed this teaching. Track 2, Shalom Aleichem. Let's look again at track 3 of this teaching, Vayeira, and he appeared. We're here at Manna from Heaven Ministries. My name's David Matthews, and we're looking at the word, in Genesis 17, 23 through 27, where it says, Abraham was circumcised in the foreskin of his flesh. The word foreskin there being orlah. And I have a question for you here. I ask you, could you see the word hidden in that word orlah? If you drop the hey, the word that left is or and la, light to. Could it be that by removing the veil of the flesh, one restores light to the body? See, as long as you're in the flesh, there is darkness in you. You circumcise your flesh, and guess what? Light is restored. You remember Adam and Eve, and when they were clothed, they were naked, yet they were clothed with light in Genesis chapter 2. And in Genesis chapter 3, they're naked because they're seen in their carnal flesh. Y'all remember that? It was this light that was extinguished yet visibly seen as a covering of flesh that has to be removed. Y'all see that? Once you're circumcised in the heart, light permeates you again. Genesis 18:1, the word for tent. He was sitting at the door to his tent, and Sarah was already in the tent. The word tent, Strong's number 168, is the word ochel, which of course means tent or tabernacle of Yahweh, but it's from the root of Strong's 166. Again, that aleph and lamed, achal, which means to be clear, to shine. And it's not coincidental that the root of this word is the same as Strong's number 174, which is a masculine noun for the word aloe, which was a healing aromatic plant that was connected with a mikveh. Isn't that what she's about to do? She's at this well of living water. And Abraham is sitting at the door. Listen to me, we're about to go somewhere with this. Abraham is sitting at the door. She's already inside the door. She's inside the opening. It's literally picturing her as an opening. The word for door is Strong's number 6607, pathak, which means an opening or an entrance, something that is loosed. It has two closely related words, 6605 and 6609, one on either side of it. Both of those infer that this word patak means to draw a sword from its scabbard or its sheath. Do you understand what I just said? He is circumcised in his male anatomy. The euphemistic term there is a sword. Did you hear me? There's a sexual euphemism, an innuendo that's being shared with you, and it's telling you that as he is circumcised, he's about to become intimate with his bride in the holy place. Did you hear what I just said? By faith, Abraham knew that as soon as the circumcision was healed, that I believe he knew the exact time. He had followed the calendar of Yahweh, don't you? He followed the calendar of Yahweh. And he knew, based on what was written in the stellar heavens in Genesis 15, he knew that a son was going to be born, son of the promise. Well, it's confirmed here in Genesis 18. They tell him, at this same time next year, Passover, your son will be born. Well, Abraham decides as soon as the circumcision's healed, he's going to go into his wife and produce a son. He sat at the tent door waiting to put his faith in action. You hear what I just said? Let's look at this cut-off generation. When you circumcise the flesh. If your faith's followed by your actions, they will separate the righteous from the wicked. Amen? You have a death penalty on you if you're not circumcised in the heart. That's what it says in Romans chapter 8 again, verse 1 again. There is therefore now no condemnation to them who are in Messiah Yeshua, who walk not after the flesh. In other words, they're uncircumcised. But walk after the Spirit. For the law of the Spirit of life in Messiah Yeshua causes me to be free from that law that judges the uncircumcised of heart. Y'all see that? Now, as soon as Abraham has this encounter and they share with him about the coming son that's going to be born, they also tell him that they're going to Sodom and Gomorrah and destroy the city. Remember? Genesis 18:20. Now you have to ask yourself, why does this follow this revelation to Abraham? Why does it follow this revelation to Abraham about circumcision and the firstborn being the righteous seed? Well, it follows it because in this area called Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboah, I forget, you go back and look, you find that it was the seed of pagan worship in that area as well. If you go back and continue to look at it, you'll see that it was also the gateway of the Nephilim, the watchers. And so it's evident that here Abraham had already, because of his encounter with the king, Kedorlaomer, and of course if you go back and look at his name, for the sake of time I'll break it down for you, 3540, his name means like, it has that kaf prefix, Dor, Kedor, Ka-dor, the generation, Dor, La Omer, the word Lamed or prefix Lamed means for, and then Omer, the Omer. So it literally means his name is like the generation of the Omer. So in other words, they were trying to counterfeit the generation that had followed Shem. They're trying to counterfeit the feasts and festivals of Yahweh, yet they're involved in pagan practices. And so Yahweh says, I'm going to go down there and do something about that. I want to look at those two principal cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom, 5467, pronounced Sodom, the root of it is 5465, Sod, which indicates shackles, bondage, or to be imprisoned, to be made a prisoner, to be made a slave. It's closely related to 5466, Sadin, which is a linen garment, also known as priestly attire, and 5468, Seder, which is a word for orderliness or something put in its proper place. So the usage of this word Sodom reveals the corruption of the priestly role of the man in marriage. Now, why would I say that? Because this whole Torah portion is dealing with the role of the husband and wife and their command from Genesis chapter 2 to produce a firstborn seed. And you see, the enemy understood that, and so the enemy's trying to counterfeit it, and in counterfeiting it, he's going to corrupt the lineage so that the firstborn can't come. And you can see that in the corruption of the firstborn called Cain, the firstborn called Ishmael, the firstborn called Esau, the firstborn that was going to be executed alongside of Yeshua called Bar Abbas. Remember Barabbas? They offered to turn him loose. Bar means son, Abbas means father. So Barabbas was known as son of the father. He was the firstborn in the flesh. And here you had the firstborn in the spirit that is executed in his place. Do y'all see the connection here? So these folks here in this place called Sodom were attempting to compromise the lineage that the Messiah was going to come through. They'd already done it in Genesis chapter 6. Amen? Let's look at the word Gomorrah. Strong's number 6017. It's actually pronounced Amorah. The root of it is seen in 6016. Again, that word Omer, which means sheaves, to be bound as sheaves, and Amar, which means to speak, to treat something as a slave. Again, you have a corruption of the counting of the Omer, the festivals of Yahweh, indicating that they spoke against such, imprisoning those who would be leaning towards celebrating the festivals. Amorah could also mean people, Ra evil, the evil people or the evil nation. Both biblical and extra-biblical accounts define these people as involved in perversions with both the fallen angels, Nephilim, and also with men, and not just limited to that, but also with perversions with animals. Now, I want you to note the numbers that we see here in this Torah portion, because Abraham has a discourse with this host that he's talking with, and he tells him, if you find 50, will you spare them? Remember that? And then 45, 40, 30, 20, 10. Well, I was laying in the bed, and I was thinking about this Torah portion, and Yahweh reminded me of these numbers. These numbers are just not idly stuck in there. And so I went back the following morning, and I added the numbers up. 50, 45, 40, 30, 20, and 10 equal 195. 195 is the gematria or the numerical value of Strong's number 5360. That word is nechama, and it means vengeance. If righteous ones can't be found, then the vengeance of Yahweh will be visited upon you. And let me just stipulate something. Yahweh would never destroy people who had not made a personal choice to engage in sin and rebellion. Did you hear what I just said? And again, I want to stipulate, what was going on here in Sodom and Gomorrah was not something that they were born into, that was a personal choice that they had engaged in. I want to look at those numbers again. 50 is the number of Jubilee. 45 is the gematria of the word or name Lot, and also the name Adam. 40 is the number of testing, and it's also the number of the phrase Ga'olah, which means his kinsman, and Vaga'al, which means and shall redeem. 30 is the number of the letter Lamed, which is the shepherd, and Lamad, to teach. 20 is the gematria of the word Kaf, which means the palm of the hand. And it's also the gematria of the word Abiv, the month of Passover, which just happens to be the month that this is taking place in. 10 is a numerical value that depicts the yod or the hand, and the gematria of the phrase avoa, I will come. Again, you see the expanded definition of David here. And it's telling us that the Jubilee or the restoration is made available for Lot and all Adam, who will, if they will endure testing and embrace the kinsman who will redeem them, the shepherd who will teach us and cover us at Passover, and who will avoa come again. Why is Passover so important to this story of circumcision? Because at Passover, the firstborn is redeemed. When you're circumcised, the firstborn is redeemed. Did you hear what I just said? Abraham knew that he was instrumental in redeeming Adam, the man-child. And through his lineage, the firstborn Messiah, who would be the firstborn of many brothers if they were circumcised in their heart. So those that would engage in the corruption of seed, which was taking place at Sodom and Gomorrah, the Nephilim, if they were engaged in gene splicing, if they were engaged in homosexuality, if they were engaged in any other perversions, bestiality, laying with animals, which was an abomination to Yahweh, every one of these practices were intending to destroy the lineage of the firstborn. That's why Yahweh destroyed these cities. And I've got news for you. The firstborn's about to return. And Yahweh's taken Jezreel that has been scattered, the firstborn of Hosea and Gomer. He's gathering the outcasts. He's gathering the scattered. And anyone, any entity that attempts to circumvent the regathering of the firstborn of Israel, the outcasts of Israel, will see the same destruction on a scale that will make Sodom and Gomorrah pale in comparison. If you don't think so, read the end of the book. Hope you've enjoyed this teaching.